everybody. This is Pastor Brady Henderson, the senior pastor of Gaston's First Baptist Church in the Midlands of South Carolina, and we are here today with the Menorah Podcast. This is episode number 13 of the Menorah Podcast, the podcast that seeks to share the light, speak the light, and send the light of Jesus Christ. And I am here with our co-host, Alan Ott.
Hey guys, how you doing?
So we are here today, and we are just super excited to talk a little bit with you about something that I'm interested in discussing, and I know Alan is too, and that is hospital visitation. This is something that is on my heart, and I know, Alan, this is something that you do really well, and just kind of want to talk to our church folks about several different things regarding hospital visitation, and just kind of want to go through this. Number one, I want to tell you who hospital visitation is for, and I hope this doesn't knock you off your feet. Biblically, it is not just for the pastor. We know in Acts chapter 6, the reason the very first deacons were called is so that pastors could do the work of the ministry, the work of studying the Word, and that deacons would take care of the affairs of the church. And so part of that, I believe, is hospital visitation. I know that I do hospital visitation. I know that not every pastor does. But I do think that not just the pastor, not just the deacons, but I think church members should be involved in hospital visitation. If somebody in your Sunday school class goes to the hospital, you need to be there. I mean, you need to at least go once or at least, and we'll talk about some do's and don'ts of hospital visitation. The whole purpose of today's podcast is to show you that hospital visitation is for everybody in the church, but I don't want to tell you that it's for everybody in the church and then not give you the tools to be able to execute a hospital visitation. So, all right, Alan, so we've talked a little bit about hospital visitation, kind of introducing it, talking about it. So before we get into the do's and the don'ts, we've talked about, everybody should visit, and I think that is a common misconception in our churches. They think the pastor should only visit. They think the deacon should only visit. Yes, they should, but we should all be a part of this because it's caring for our fellow brothers and sisters in Christ. So, Alan, when you hear the phrase hospital visitation, what comes to mind?
I think you kind of have to look at the history of things, and originally, most people worked. They were subsistence farmers, or they did stuff that supported subsistence farmers, and you basically helped a guy out. If you had a particular farmer that had a bad year or whatever, regardless of what it was, you kind of helped those guys out, and you knew them. You had a vested interest in their well-being, and as we moved more into the industrial age and people worked more outside of the homes, that started shifting.
Yeah.
Much like, when I was smaller, when I was younger, my family we would have Sunday dinner, and then they would usually visit with relatives. And generally, you took something. It may be a jar of preserves, maybe a recipe, maybe a cake, but you took something and you brought something back. And that was kind of a way of staying in touch with maybe not quite so close relatives. It kind of gave you that relationship. Generally, when I do visits, whether at hospitals or at homes, I get more out of it, I think, than probably the people do.
Yep.
I've been on some visits where I've sat in a hospital waiting room for 6-7 hours.
All day.
I've been on some that, you just breeze through and say, hey, guys, I just wanted you to know that I'm thinking about you. Is there anything you need? Mm-hmm. I try to be there to think about the small things and I've actually gotten pretty good at, okay, so you're going to get there at this time. The first place you're going is here. Yeah. They're going to tell you what to do. They got some paperwork. Then you're going around here and sit around for a few minutes.
Oh, yeah.
It's time to get your thoughts together. Then they're going to come get one of you and take you back.
And you're talking about surgeries here, not just those that are
surgeries
admitted.
Or procedures. Some little radiological stuff's the same way also. There's comfort in having somebody that kind of knows what's going on. The medical profession, and this is not really a slam on them, but sometimes I think they forget that, because they deal with this every day.
Yeah.
It's easy to miss the fact that this is the only time you're going to deal with this.
Yep.
So it's one of those things where you may be a little uncomfortable with what you're hearing or maybe not hearing. It's always good to have a friendly face.
Yep. Now, I do want to say something from from the perspective of a pastor. We can't attend a need if we don't know a need.
Right.
I know that's common sense, but I've received similar comments this before, and I'm sure you have too in your deacon ministry. Well, nobody came and saw me. Well, you didn't tell anybody. I know back in the 40s and 50s and 60s, most hospitals, when you went in the hospital, they would ask you where you were a member of church. And you would say that you're a member of so and so, and the hospital would contact the secretary at the church, and the secretary would tell the pastor.
Okay.
Those days don't exist anymore.
Oh, no.
Right? And so that doesn't happen anymore. So you actually have to tell somebody. And here's the other thing, you kind of touched on this. We live in a day, and I am 100% respectful of this, absolutely. I mean, I don't know about listeners, but if I ever go in the hospital, I don't want anybody to come see me. That's just my personality. I would rather you pray for me. I think that's more impactful. I'm not going to get upset. That's just not who I am. I'm not going to, want, that kind of thing. So there are people that are private with their health. There are people that don't necessarily want visits. And I think one thing that gets tricky with hospital visitation is when people call and say, hey, so-and-so's in the hospital. And I appreciate people that do that. But I've got to contact that person first and make sure they're okay with the visit. I just can't just show up.
Yeah.
And I know some people expect you just to show up. Well, I told you so-and-so was in the hospital. Why didn't you go? I might not could tell you why. You just need to trust that there's a reason why.
Well, in full disclosure too, if somebody calls me up and says so-and-so's in the hospital and I think you probably need to visit them, I'm going to reach out to them and I'm going to say, so-and-so called me and said that you were going in for a procedure, and I'd like to know, what I can do to help you guys out. I'd love to come sit with you. And I've done a lot of stuff in my life, but I'd like to think that I can sit around and be there.
Yep.
Probably as good as the next person.
Yep. And I think that's an important part of ministry, and I think it takes all of us to do that. And I do think our church does well at that, but I think we can do better at that. And I think, one thing, too, that I want to tell our listeners, if you're ever in the hospital, just because the pastor or associate pastor or deacons don't come, it does not mean we don't care.
Exactly.
We're going to try to send somebody, but if it's not the pastor, the worst thing you can do is look at that deacon and say, well, you're not the pastor. Or look at the associate pastor and say, well, you're not the senior pastor. Just a word to the wise, don't do that. Because we are a team, right? There is, and by the way, there is nothing in the Bible that says a senior pastor has to go. It does say the deacons are to serve in that way and to meet the needs of the people. So I think we need to remind ourselves of that it's not a one-man show. As Alan Ott famously says, one monkey don't stop no show. And I think we have to remember that when it comes to visitation. For example, I might be out of town. Maybe Pastor Chris will go, which he does a great job of that. He does visitation. And then I know that our deacons, we have a deacon group chat. And obviously, whoever's person's in the hospital, I let their deacon know. But sometimes their deacon's at work, like you mentioned earlier. We're blessed to have a lot of flexible and or retired deacons. So, Alan, we'll send a text out, say, hey, can somebody visit so-and-so tomorrow? Never send a text and somebody didn't go see that person. So I do know that it works, and I do know that our people do care about that. So I don't want you to think just because that one particular person, whether it's pastor or whoever, doesn't come see you, be happy somebody came and saw you. Be happy somebody came. And also remember that just because somebody's physical presence is there does not mean their spiritual presence is not.
I know there's a number of you out there that might hear this, that you don't want to worry anybody or don't want to bother anybody, or somebody's always got something better to do. Just let us know.
Yeah, at least let us know.
At least say, hey, look, I'm going in for this procedure. I'd prefer you not come.
Or my mom's in the hospital.
Or my mom's in the hospital. We don't need a visit. I trust the Lord through all of this, but just pray for us. And, that gives you an opportunity to engage with that person and say, look, if anything changes, call me.
Yep. And prayer is important. And I think sometimes, sorry to interrupt you, but I think sometimes when we think somebody has to be there, we devalue the power of prayer. We devalue the fact that prayer can happen anywhere.
Right.
And I think that's really important. One thing that I'll also say as we continue on this conversation and wrap up here in a few minutes is, And I had this struggle a lot when I first came here as pastor. I don't have the struggle as much anymore. But one thing that listeners do not understand, if you have a family member that's in the hospital and you want me or someone else to go and visit, I get those requests a lot. Might not be a church member, might be somebody's mom, might be somebody's dad, might be somebody's brother. I've been asked to visit a fourth cousin before, different things of that nature. I don't have a problem with it, but what you got to understand is if they have a church, I am going to contact that church's pastor before I go, because it's that pastor's sheep, and I'm going to ask him and say, can I go and visit this person? Their family member has asked me to. I have had situations where they've said, no, I've got it. And that's cool. I just don't ever want to step over anybody's pastoral boundaries. And I know that concept sounds foreign, but that's something that most people don't think about. I know that, if I have a church member that's in the hospital, I'd appreciate it. If I didn't know they were in the hospital, I'd appreciate it if somebody would call me and tell me. I wouldn't have a problem with them visiting, but you never want to get the reputation for stealing sheep or whatever the case may be. So I do want to remind people of that. I do want to also remind people I don't have a problem visiting people that aren't in church, that are your family members, but please realize that I do have a lot of other things too. Right? I can't necessarily put that number one. I've got to put my sheep first. I've got to put, by the way, study time. That takes a long time, preparation time, administration work, things like that. So I do think that's important too. I do know there are from time to time, some folks get their feelings hurt because so-and-so didn't go visit their cousin or their aunt. Yet again, I don't think that means we don't love you. It doesn't mean that at all. It just means that we're praying for you, and if we can, we will.
As a church, we have to remember oftentimes those people that are in those situations are experiencing probably some of the worst days of their lives.
Oh, yeah.
It's a time that they are more likely to experience emotions that they're not
used to,
ready to deal with, or not used to dealing with. And, oftentimes it is. I have not been in on a lot of situations where folks have died unexpectedly. It's always good to kind of know what you're walking into.
Yeah, that's important.
Very seldom do you get that real opportunity unless you're pretty close to those folks.
Yeah.
I've developed some relationships over the past several years just simply from visiting in the hospitals.
Yep, I agree. All right, let me give you some do's and don'ts before we log off for today's episode. I recommend any hospital visit to be 10 minutes and below. The reason that I think that is because that person that you're visiting in the hospital, now I'm not talking about surgery, but I'm talking about somebody that's been admitted to the hospital, they're more than likely in a lot of pain. That's why they're there. More than likely, they don't want to be there. And more than likely, they probably don't look like they normally do. And what I mean by that is they've been in a bed all day. They probably haven't been able to shower as much. They're definitely not in their normal clothes. So no problem with going and visiting, but don't go and stay 2 hours unless they're wanting you to do that, unless they're wanting you to sit. But if you're just stopping by, visiting and praying, every visit should have a purpose. Every visit should end with prayer. Every visit should be focused about that person that's in the hospital. It's not about you as the visitor. It's now if they ask you something like how's church going or whatever, feel free to answer. But don't go in there and say, "Hey, you like my new jacket?" Don't ever play the role of doctor. And what I mean by that is don't go in the hospital and they say, "Hey, I've got this wrong," and you say, "Well, hey, I think it might be this." Odds are you're wrong. You know why? Because you didn't go to school to be a doctor. Right? And so I do, unless you're a doctor that's listening, I do think, you got to be careful. I've heard preachers say before that they've diagnosed people, and it's not your job. Your job is to go in there and provide spiritual care. Your job is to go in there and pray. I would definitely say try to take somebody with you always, and if you're visiting with somebody of the opposite sex, you have to take somebody with you. I didn't think I'd have to say that these days in the hospitals, but I think you do. I think you need, if I'm going to visit a lady in a hospital, I'm going to take somebody with me. Usually I never go to the hospital alone. I think it's just important to have people with you. Only time I go to the hospital alone is if it's an emergency or if I'm dropping by before surgery, and usually if I'm dropping by before surgery, a deacon's already there. So I kind of think that's pretty important. Those are some of the do's and don'ts. Always knock. before you go in. I've had situations before where patients have not been fully clothed, and I just walked on in. That
Or, doctors may be in there. They
doctors
may be
might be in there.
discussing
Yeah,
something that
that's
is,
private and
yeah.
confidential.
And you can always kind of take your cues from the staff.
Oh yeah, check at
I,
the front desk.
they'll kind of give you a little bit of guidance.
Yeah, they'll help you out with that. So, Al, you got anything to add?
I think that's about it.
We cover it.
We covered it.
All right. Well, now you've got some guidelines to help you do some hospital visitation. So next time you know a church member's in the hospital, you have no excuse. It's your job to go and see them, love on them, pray with them, and be a part of the hands and feet of Jesus. This has been the 13th episode of the Menorah Podcast. It has been a pleasure having you on today. And guess what? We will see you next Thursday, May the 2nd. Don't forget, this is the Menorah Podcast. The purpose is to share the light, speak the light, and send the light of Jesus Christ all across the internet airwaves. Have a great day. We'll see you later.